Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Late Challenge podcast. I am Mo Stewart. That over there in his fancy velour trackie is Gareth Roberts, and we have got a jam-packed show for you today. Plenty to get our teeth into in the world of Liverpool. There's been 2 games since we last saw you, and there's going to be another 2 games until we see you again. So we're going to be talking about all of those. We're going to be covering late drama, supposedly elite referees, red cards for coaches, red cards for players, red cards avoided for players, crowd disturbances, tired players, nervous fans, a game ahead, a game behind, the genius of Mo Salah, the benefits of Virgil van Dijk. But before all of that, we've had some breaking news that broke today, which some of us may have already known a little bit about. I'm sure by now you have seen that Liverpool have officially announced they will be freezing ticket prices for the 25-26 season and general admission. And Mr. Gareth, you may well have helped with some of that campaign. You can now talk about it freely because we were kind of hinting around the edges previously while it was still in the works. But there's no doubt this is, if not the whole victory of the war, certainly a significant battle.
Yeah, it's a battle won 100%, and it's great. Look, it's really good that the club have listened and that the club have sort of rolled back from looking to increase revenue through tickets once again. They've done that obviously the last 2 years running. It was certainly sort of on the agenda, shall we say, when discussions began. They promised us last year that they would meaningfully engage with us, and they have. They listened to us. We obviously published Spirit of Shankly and the other groups that make up the supporters board, we all co-signed an open letter before the process began. That got a lot of traction, got a lot of media. I think it helped personally with just sort of getting the message home and showing that it was well thought out. I know that it went to every level of the club, shall we say, including to America, to Boston. So if it's good, and I think hopefully that the message is starting to get through, not just at Liverpool but maybe elsewhere too, that this isn't just about money and this isn't just about affordability and accessibility of tickets. It is about that, but it's also about sort of what you're potentially denigrating in what we've got in our football grounds in England as well. So, slowly but surely, if you just continue to put the prices up, if you continue to price people out, because don't have any doubt about it, people already have been priced out. Yep. And every time you put them up that little bit more will be the tipping point for someone else. You'll say, I can't go anymore. I'm just going to... You've got people at Anfield, I don't know how many people are aware of this. You've got people at Anfield that come to Anfield and go to the pub who used to go. Yeah. And that is, that in itself is incredibly sad, I think. And it's sad in that there is a culture that is passed on, through generations, through, when you go to school or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we used to say it was almost like, the Liverpool way, if you like. And and it's the songs, it's the banners, it's the atmosphere at Anfield. And I think if you just take that away and it becomes more of a, more of a transient crowd, more of a, a different 60,000 people filling it each time rather than, some of the regulars in there. I just think you start to lose that. You start to lose that culture, and not just at Liverpool. At all of the clubs where you think they've got a good atmosphere, they've got good support, they get behind, they've got good songs, good banners. You saw. I referenced it on the show the other week. The Gallagher for that game against Arsenal was fantastic. It was, yeah. I absolutely loved it, and I've got no, I've got no skin in the game with Newcastle.
You can almost argue that even Goodison on Wednesday night was 100%, 100%. And I think the whole point between the regulars and passing on that culture is really important because we don't want it to seem like it's only the same people who can go, but when you have people who've come from abroad and they want to come in and they want to sample the atmosphere, they want to get involved with that. You need that hardcore to be able to teach them the way. Yeah. So that way, it's not a case of saying you can't have new people coming in. It's just that the new people coming in need to understand that culture. They need someone to help them become part of it, because people who are watching this, who don't get a chance to come to Anfield, who live on the other side of the world, when they come, they want to get involved. They want to hear the songs. They want to hold the banners when You'll Never Walk Alone is coming on. But if the people who are there if people aren't there to help them set the table, then that will all disappear.
And that's the thing that I think is maybe going amiss sometimes, just generally in conversations between fans, owners, etc. Did they truly get what we're saying about this is to everyone's advantage to protect this? So the players want it. How many times you see a player at Anfield or elsewhere who will turn to the stands and say, and do this, say like, come on, and their arms are going up. And that's because when the ground's at its best, when the atmosphere's at its best, when it's passionate, when it's colourful, all of those things, they will run through walls for you. It will push them on, it will drive them on. We've seen that this season. The crowd were huge for the game against Brighton. The crowd were huge for the game against Real Madrid. And look, there are times when the crowd can be the other way around. I mean, maybe
we'll be talking about that in a bit.
I thought we might. But, I just think that, that needs to be protected. And there are other ways that clubs can, bring in revenue. Liverpool's doing pretty good for revenue if you look at the accounts. There are going to be accounts coming out shortly which will show a picture where it doesn't necessarily all look rosy, but you've got to consider other things that have gone on, built a new stand, etc., things like that. And there's a big new deal coming in around Adidas.
Yep.
The revenue, like I say, is rosy, but there's like this arms race between the clubs is the other problem. So they're all looking at each other and they're all like, well, they're putting their ticket prices up, so we'll put our ticket prices up. And that's why Liverpool going first as one of the big clubs to say we're freezing is huge, is great, and hopefully will lead to a bit of a domino effect elsewhere in the league. So the way things stand currently, the picture is Brighton put theirs up, some quite significant rises there as well. Brentford and Wolves, if Wolves stay up, they have both said that they will freeze next season. And now, of course, Liverpool. So now it's like all eyes on, City, United, Tottenham, Arsenal. And some of those mentioned, Tottenham and Man United in particular, I would say, there's a sense that they might still go and put them up. And so that's why the whole, the campaigning will continue. The FSA, Stop Exploiting Loyalty campaign will go on. A letter got sent to the Premier League, suggesting that the Premier League, should broker a meeting almost, if you like, of all the clubs, get them all to sit down and talk about ticketing policy. Because one of the things that we're saying to them is, if already there is policy around away tickets. So away tickets in the Premier League are £30.
Yeah.
That came due to supporter campaigning, Spirit of Shankly, FSA, Spy & Cop, other groups as well. And they literally walked on the Premier League and things like that, going back years here.
Yeah, I remember.
And they won it through, and it stayed at £30, and it's fantastic. And we think, and we're proposing, and we're saying, you could do something like that. And look, there are regional differences, and you see that already in terms of, like Fulham charging 160 quid and things like that. So, okay. But you can still sit down and have a think about this. You can still put a bit of a sort of rope around it and say, let's stop competing in this particular area. Let's protect concessions as well. Let's not, reduce children's tickets, disabled tickets, older people tickets, etc. Leave them alone, protect that. And like what you did with the away prices, let's talk about doing something similar with the home prices. Now, the Premier League have come out with a bit of a absolute old chestnut of a reply, which is it's up to the individual clubs to set their own ticketing policies. We can't influence it. I don't believe, and I don't think a lot of people in this movement, if you want to call it that, believe that is true or believe that is the end of it. And, there are going to be further things coming now soon to try and put a bit more pressure on the Premier League to change the mind on that. So, we've lobbied, campaigned to our individual club, and we've got to win, and that's fantastic. But it's not stopping. We want to carry on. We want to carry on talking to them. We want to carry on getting this message across. We want to carry on saying, keep it affordable, keep it accessible, keep the fans that make it what it is, it within their, financial reach, if you like. So yeah, like I say, it's really good, and I'm really pleased, and it was really nice to put that out there today, and really nice as well. Look, to underline the fact that I try to underline all the time: when supporters come together, work together, and produce cogent, intelligent arguments, you can win things.
Yeah.
You can prove to the people running the clubs that you've got a case and that you should be listened to. And, there are different ways to do it, and there are different methods, and all of those things have been employed. So people have seen us outside the grounds with banners, we've done media, but we've also wrote a thought out, well thought out argument with the open letter. There's more stuff like that coming down the line as well, almost like the idea of almost having like a bit of a, this is what we think football should look like. Would you please consider it? There's the regulator stuff starting to come through now as well. That's been going through the House of Lords. So there's lots of stuff there which I think is good and is brilliant and is a good start and a basis for us to go somewhere, because I do feel this year in particular, I felt like it's been at a bit of a crossroads. Like it could have gone either way.
It could have.
Do you know what I mean? I really feel like, even Liverpool, I feel like they could have just gone, okay, we're here, yeah, but you know what, we're just going to do it anyway and cop for it and see, we'll take the bad PR type of thing. So credit to them for listening.
Yeah, and credit to you and to everyone on the supporters board for putting in the work. And
cheers, Mum.
Here's hoping that we can start to see it across the Premier League, and the Premier League can not be too concerned about the relationships they're trying to foster and actually start to do things for the good of the people who invest in their product. The people can have the power about things that really matter, not necessarily about signing players.
So join Spirit of Shankly and join the FSA.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's talk about some football. Now, Liverpool, we're going to go over both games, but rather than do it chronologically, the game from yesterday is still pretty fresh in all of our minds, so we might as well start with that. Liverpool 2, Wolves 1. I think the old days they would call it a game of two halves. Liverpool looked pretty good in the first half, scored 2 goals, possibly could have had a few more. Got in at half-time, everyone's feeling quite good about things, thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be another like Ipswich where we get to 3-0 on 60 and can cruise our way home.
I think that's what we would have all liked.
Yeah. Didn't happen though, did it?
No, very much did not happen, did it? I mean, it was a strange game all round, really. Like, even first half, yes, we were comfortable and we were 2-0 up, I should say. But it also felt like we didn't have to do too much to achieve that almost, do you know what I mean? Like, Wolves weren't great in the first half. And it was like I thought they looked good second half.
Yeah,
I was surprised by like sort of this new level that they reached. And maybe it surprised Liverpool as well because, as you've just said, maybe they come out thinking, well, it's 2-0, we'll probably get another. And obviously there's an offside goal, there's a pen turned down, and then otherwise there's nothing else essentially from Liverpool.
Literally nothing else.
So it was, and then it did, obviously, when Cunha scored that great goal, it all ended up very nervy and people getting angsty and people turning on the players a little bit and Robbo indicating that he wasn't particularly into that.
Oh, bless him. Like, this is one of the reasons I love him, though. And this is the thing. Sometimes you get in situations where you can say things like that to people because you love them. And no one's in any doubt how Robbo feels about the crowds and about Liverpool fans in general. But because he does love them, he can tell you off. It's like your mum. She can tell you off sometimes when you need turning off. And it's funny, I was in the mix zone after the game and we were talking to Virgil van Dijk, and one of the other journalists told, I think it's Paul Gorse, told Virgil about that. And his face was like, Robert did that, did he? Because he obviously didn't see it. And he was just like, he was just a bit, kind of like laughing to just say, boy, that guy's wild. But at the same time, he's just a bit like, yeah, fair play, because it probably did need to happen. And it's a weird situation because I think as Liverpool fans, we've been through title races before, and we've been through title races more than the team we're fighting with, Arsenal. So in theory, we should be more used to this. We should be more understanding of the rhythms and the emotions of a title running. But because most of them have gone badly, there's a real kind of feeling of like mental scarring. So the minute it looks like it could go, everyone just drives off a cliff.
I know. We need to control that, I think, collectively as a group of fans, because that isn't helping, obviously, and that's why Robbo does what he does. You mentioned Virgil. Virgil says in his comments afterwards that there's 13 to go, and this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah, buckle up.
Because it will be. You can't expect them to turn up week in, week out when they're playing 5 games in 15 days and all the rest of it, and be absolutely on blob every single time. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And so there are games where you eke it out. There are games where there'll be adversity and all the rest of it. When I sort of woke up today and I was having like a second think about it, if you like, I was actually like much more positive than I was, I think, when I was in the ground. Because when I thought back, I thought, well, if you think about it, Salah's delivered from the spot, as he always does. Alisson's delivered in making key saves at key times. Kwanzaa's delivered in making a great block tackle. And essentially, through the span of your team, people have delivered and we've got the points. And that's a good thing then, isn't it? Yeah. And it's the classic of, that's how you win titles. Yeah. You'll have a bit of an off day, but you still win. And look, it was a bit nervy. Cunha, by the way, what a goal.
Yeah.
And also, in his interview afterwards, maybe just me this and all that, but he was very like, this great club and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, come to Liverpool,
you know
mate.
What?
Come on.
That was no accident. And he's very clever the way he walks the line. He's like, we're very disappointed. We didn't get the points, but to come here, and to a certain extent, it can be a little bit like, well, clearly we're playing this very good team, which is why we played well and didn't get the points. But also, like you say, it's very much like this hallowed stadium. God, what it must be like to play here every week, eh?
Yeah.
Eh? But
a phrase I heard once, which comes to mind in that interview, is fanning his arse. At Liverpool, perhaps.
Like a little peacock.
Yeah. You'd have him, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, you'd have him. And I think the funny thing about it was you look at the way he played and the way that he really kind of brought his whole team up. Because they didn't
bollock at everyone.
Yeah. And there was one moment where the ball comes, he lays the ball out to the left, and then he makes a run, and then I think it's Bradley by that point tackles him, and he's going nuts. He just seems like swinging, punching the air, just like, fucking hell!
Yeah.
And he really believed that they could get that point. And I think when you've got a guy like that who's got that quality to just score a goal out of nothing, it really does help your confidence. And I think for the opposite, for Liverpool, it was almost like, well, shit, we haven't contained this guy. He's just done that out of nowhere. And it kind of really starts to change and the mood changes. And so we need to talk a little bit about tiredness, because they did look tired that second half. And we've heard a lot about how the way that Slot plays football doesn't put as much effort and much into your legs as the way Jurgen played football. And so we should be better come the second half of the season. But the evidence of, you can say the last 2 games, really, because they had all that time off against Plymouth. Then you think, okay, they're going to come roaring out of the blocks in the derby. Didn't quite happen that way. Then you have this game where they start great, get into a good position, and then Wolves come back at them, and they've got not really much to go back with. And you wonder about, like you say, there's a lot of games in a short period of time. And if this is kind of like the beginning of that period, where are we going to be towards the end of it? Where are we going to be like Newcastle at home in 8 days' time or something?
Well, you know what? The Villa, I think the Villa game, which is the next one up, obviously, it's really annoying that. And look, I get that the schedule's mad and there's hardly any free, periods where they can drop games into and all that. But the idea that, we've reached the cup final, and then to accommodate that, they've moved a game back, if you like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They've moved it into a already busy period and gone, we'll just drop it in there and you just crack on. Villa aren't happy about that either, apparently. Aren't. And it's that it doesn't seem that fair, that really. Do you know what I mean?
It's mad, though, because you can look at it and say we were already kind of busy in that period. But then you think about, well, where would it come? And, do you want a tricky, and I mean, I'm projecting here, hoping the best is going to happen in our European campaign. But do you want a tricky midweek away to Villa after the second leg of a quarter-final of the Champions League? Maybe not. And also, as we're going to come on to, maybe here or maybe on the Patreon show, come join us. Villa, the reason that they don't want it now is because they haven't got any defenders.
I know.
They're going through a bit of a
Well,
rough
that's the
job.
one thing that's sort of like, keeping me going about it, really. It's like, okay, it's not ideal. We looked a bit goose there, but at least they've got that bit of a situation going on. So, maybe we'll be all right type of thing. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say about the second half as well is everyone's saying, as you did, and, quite rightly, I get it, game of two halves and all that, but I still felt that at times in the second half, there were definitely times, don't get me wrong, like they were better than us in the second half. But I also felt there were quite significant periods where we still did we're taking big times out of this. We're just going to go back, we're going to go side to side, we're not really going to do anything. Just like this sort of sterile, not sterile domination's wrong, because we weren't dominating, but we just sort of like, not really sure about this whole match state at the minute, so we're just going to sort of take a bit of a sting out of it. And I kind of was into that.
I get it. Yeah.
But equally, though, there's no two ways about it. I mean, Cunha's goal is great, but, Gravenberch sort of like not himself on that goal. I think, McAllister, started to like give it away a bit, which isn't very McAllister.
No.
And like, you were thinking, they're definitely looking leggy here. And then obviously, there's the situation with Konate, and, he maybe was
So yeah, let's
a bit fortunate.
So let's talk about that, because I was watching him with this first yellow card. He goes on a bit of a run, and you can tell it's almost like he gets halfway through this run and he's thinking, I can maybe go a bit further here. I can maybe go a bit further. Maybe I can get to the end of the box. And then suddenly he has a long touch. It's like, oh shit. And he's gone and he's lost it. And then rather than thinking, okay, I've lost it, I've now got to run back, he then pulls him back, concedes a free kick. And even if that wasn't enough, he then kicks the ball away. And he's just like, lad, like, one mistake, fair enough. But 2-3 mistakes, you don't do that. And then once you've done that, you kind of have to compromise the way you do everything else. And I love Konate. I love how he's very front foot. I love his aggression. But there are times when he's a little bit like a kind of you get one of those giant babies, you don't quite know how strong they are, and they'll sometimes just barrel into someone and knock them flying. He's a bit like that sometimes, like he doesn't know his own strength.
It was a bit risky, wasn't it? Like, and a bit unnecessary, and it was the right decision, wasn't it, to take him off? Like, it was very much one of those. He probably should have gone, so we'll take him off now.
and that's the third time that's happened. Well, if you count, you could count Isaac Maguire in the FA Cup against Plymouth and say 4, but McAllister at Bournemouth, Bradley in the Derby, and now Konate, and all 3 times it's just a bit like, yeah, we need to take him off.
And it's good game management, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, it's totally looking at it almost dispassionately and saying, okay, I don't really care who it is or how good they are. We don't want to be down to 10 men, so you're now off. And I think as well that, perversely almost, that getting Kwanzaa on the pitch and him having a big moment is no bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Because I've kind of felt a little bit sorry for him for a while about, from day one, obviously, of the season, sort of getting hauled off and, and Slot maybe being overly honest and saying, I just didn't win his battle, so yeah, see you later, didn't win his duels. And it's like, okay, that's quite, you're putting that in the public, are you? So I've kind of felt like, he needs a moment, and so he's got one. You know what I mean? Like it's a fantastic thing. It's one of them where maybe he's gone home as well and watched Match of the Day 2, and they're all highlighting it on there and saying great bit of old school defending and all this, and you're like, all these things I think matter, because you know what? I think what we maybe lose sight of, and maybe that's what the ground lost sight of as well, is, they're all human.
Yes,
they're not robots. No. And like all this whole title race thing, we'll get to them. They will have burned through loads of emotional energy, I think, at the derby. Like, I've been thinking about that loads as well. And it's like, I tried to be very, as much as I could be, I tried to be like dispassionate. I didn't get a ticket in the end, so it was, it's easier to be dispassionate when you're not there. But I very much tried to keep telling myself it's 6, 7 or 9 points clear, 6, 7 or 9 points clear. And obviously it was dead annoying how it went, and dead annoying to concede in that moment. But I was just glad it was done very soon after. I was like, I'm glad that's done. It's chalked off. We played the game in hand. We don't have to go there again. And I just thought, there's an argument to say no one else faces that. Do you know what I mean? No one else faces Goodison like that.
No.
Especially not in the last ever derby than Liverpool this season.
And
so when Arsenal go there, you know, they'll probably have fucking Anders Limper on the fucking front of the programme. And, you know, and
they'll have Arteta.
Pull out picture of Arteta inside like the other day. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like...
But even
roll out the blue carpet.
Arsenal will say, oh, well, obviously we've got the North London derby. And it's like, yeah, but... I mean...
Is it like that?
I don't think so. Spurs haven't turned up in either of them this season. Arsenal have already won both of them and won them quite comfortably. But like you say... And we'll come on to this when we're talking in more detail about the derby. It's a different kettle of fish. But like with Kwanzaa, you're right to say that he needed that spotlight of him doing something good, because personally, I felt like he was one of the better players against Plymouth, and it kind of got glossed over because the whole game wasn't great and we lost. But I felt like he was one of the ones who was actually doing some good. And it felt like every time he'd come onto the pitch before that, it had a little bit of I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. And yeah, he is a young player. He's still very much making his way. And you see people talk about, he's not good enough, he's not this. And it's like, he's still very early in his career. Yeah. Like, go look at Virgil van Dijk when he was his age and see how great you thought he was then. He is miles ahead of where most centre-halves are in their development. So we need to be a bit careful with him in how we deal with him and how we treat him. So I was made up that he was able to hit a really big moment in that. Someone else, well, two other players I want to shout out for good things they did in that game. First of all, Luis Diaz gets the goal. I mean, it hits him and goes in, but it's a goal. Like,
stuffy as fuck.
Doesn't matter. But then shows great desire to go out there, win the penalty. So he's involved in both goals. Like, he's had to do a lot of dog work at number 9. Like, let's face it, like, we never really hear from him. So if you said to him, Lewis, do you want to play as a number 9? Or would you like to play left wing like you have done for all your career? I'm assuming he'll say, left wing, please.
Yeah.
But the same with Cody Gakpo. He's not really had that choice. So he's been having to do it. And just like Gakpo last season, as soon as you put him where he wants to be, suddenly he looks like a player again.
How long is Gakpo meant to be out for?
Well, we don't know for sure. Like, from what I've heard, I'm not expecting to see him on Wednesday, but maybe in the squad for Sunday. So that means that maybe Lewis gets another start against Villa. Maybe that's good for him, build up a little bit of momentum after getting some good play against Wolves. But yeah, after all what you just said about tiredness, you're kind of hoping that Cody does come back pretty soon.
100%, yeah. I mean, it was a strange one, wasn't it? And, so many players really didn't really, play that well. He did all right, Diaz, but, Trent wasn't great.
No.
Jota wasn't great. I don't really know what Jota was doing on the penalty.
No, just shoot.
Just score, lad.
Just shoot. But he's done that before. So there's a Chelsea at home last season where the same thing happened, where it's just like they took him out and the one was given. But it's like, just put it in the net.
Yeah.
Just put it in, the ball's there. But yeah, Jota, he can be sometimes like that, a bit like...
It looked nailed, like, obviously I'm on the cop, but it looked absolutely nailed on. It was like, like the angle we got of it, if you like, from the cop, I was like, that's the most penalty I've ever seen in my life. And then obviously you're like, what's happened?
It's like an optical illusion.
And then the lad next to me, he's like, like the mate at home's watching it on the telly, and he's like, he's dived. And I'm like, has he? Like, so...
But someone else I wanted to talk about, the gum shield gaffer himself, Wataru Endo, because we spoke about Cunha and about how great he was and the influence he had. Endo got in his face and he actually stopped him from being as effective as he was. And he's basically, his life at the moment is when Liverpool got a lead, he straps himself in, goes out there and just hunts down the ball and just makes himself a nuisance. And he did it again. Like, there was the one where he gave away the free kick, which I thought he was kind of unlucky with on the edge of the box. That didn't go in. But then the one where he wins the free kick in the 96th minute, and it's just like, that does it. That kills the game there. And
when he gave the free kick away, though, I was like, lad.
But I think, again, like...
You're not wrapping your foot around that. You're like, what you could see, no, mate, don't put it in. And then it was like, and I just thought, this is going in. This is going in. This is going in. This is going in. I can't take it. It's going in. But yeah, you're right. He's like the break glass. And again, I thought it was good management. It made sense to bring him on at that point. I think you just had to cop for the fact. And to be fair, he was dead honest afterwards, wasn't he, Slot? That it wasn't our day in terms of a great performance. I think he said we kept getting worse. And it was like, okay, in that circumstance, know that then, and just like try and any way but win. Win. Just find a way. And we've all said that for years. And so again, just to come back to it again, to labour the point, I just, like, let's not get on the backs. No. I know it's hard, and I know we're all angsty, and I know we're all desperate to see us win the league. And, like, this is what I found it quite amusing before, like, at the radio on Getting Ready or whatever, and they were doing the whole, regurgitating this thing about going out against Plymouth and Liverpool throwing away the chance to win the real treble and all this bollocks. And I was like, mate, no one cares. No. Literally, like, you are not getting it here. We want the league. Everyone I speak to wants the league. They're desperate to see the league. Desperate to see it won in the manner we always dreamt. Desperate to see it won where we're actually in grounds. Yeah. Desperate to have that big party and celebration that we dreamt about for all of those years. And then when it arrived, it wasn't how we wanted it to be. All that. We want that. We want that. No one's really asked about the real treble.
If I give you the option to lose in the League Cup final 5-0 and win the league, what are you doing?
I am winning the league.
Absolutely. And all of you are doing exactly the same thing.
Someone's just sent me during the show. Liverpool have brought, this is just proper old Meldrewy type comment, but that's me and I'm sound with it. They brought out official t-shirt for the Carabao Cup final, and it's a half and half Liverpool Newcastle type design.
What?
Come on, lad.
Hey?
Nah.
Are you sure that's not some kind of weird early April Fool's joke?
There you go, look. I know everyone else can't see this, but like,
Jesus wept.
But yeah, like, so not only Reds, like, it's great that you work with the supporters about the ticket prices. Maybe in some other aspects of the supporter culture, you should work with us on that as well, because I can think of lots of supporters who maybe won't buy that, to be honest with you, Reds. But anyway.
No, don't do that. Right, so you mentioned Virgil before. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him because, again, I got to speak to him post-match in the mix zone, and you can see on my...
Did he smell nice?
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
He's great, yeah. And honestly, when you ask him a question and then he just looks at you, he just kind of like, oh, yes, whatever you say, Virg. No.
He is like boss, and he's like just that cool. Like,
but it was funny because some of the questions were kind of the nature of, well, the angst in the crowd and the anxiety and all that kind of stuff. How are you going to deal with it if it's like this again? And they were a little bit like, not quite confrontational, but gave him space to be able to say, well, yes, that's not right. But he was just like, he laughed it off. And it was like, you know what? Everyone's human. Like, the fans, they don't want to do that. They'd rather be happy, but they're humans. Their emotions get the better of them. And it's like, we don't mind about that. We can kind of lay it off. And obviously, like I said, he didn't see what Robbo got up to. So you get the impression that he's fine. Not all of them are fine, but he's able to circle the wagons. And this is why I'm so glad that we've got him. Like, another thing that he said during that interview was that there are some players in the group who will watch their opponents' games and get involved in it. And he's just like, tells them, what's the point? Just control what you can control. So,
yeah.
First of all, that got me...
I like that he's there for that reason.
Yeah.
Because imagine, like I've said this before elsewhere, imagine working with him. Like, you need, like, in a team game, a team environment, whatever, just having him there, and he's just cool as fuck, and he's sound, and he's calm, and, like, it would bring you down,
absolutely.
Wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It would be like, it's going to be all right. Let's just look in Virgil's eyes. Let's smell whatever that aftershave is that he won't tell anyone what it is. I did ask when we were out in Qatar. He wouldn't tell me.
It's his own special recipe. He's mixing it up in the bath.
But he is just, like, I can remember, just to go back to that interview all of those years ago in Qatar. So me and Andy Heaton, and Andy won't mind me telling him this, saw Andy yesterday. Good lad. It was nice to catch up. So we sat down with Virgil, or we were about to, and start this interview, and he said, Andy went to Virgil, like, but basically, like, I've always thought you're a boss player and, always been one of my favourites. And he's like, I'm really nervous about this. And Virgil was like, you're nervous about speaking to me? I'm just me. You'll be all right. You ask me whatever you want, mate. You'll be all right. You know what I mean? And I was like, what a fella.
Yeah. Literally the perfect thing.
Yeah. And the next minute, Andy's like totally relaxed then and like going on about the trainees he had. And they had a big night conversation because Andy's banging to his night as well. And I was like, that's boss, the way you've just settled Andy in a click of a fingers, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's boss fella. And
you imagine that he's going to be a great captain, a great leader, and possibly a great manager in the future.
Yeah.
Now, another great player who we've got, Mo Salah. Now, I am making a motion to bring in a Mo Salah stat after every single football game because he's collecting records like DJ Shadow, like Grandmaster Flash, like all those other DJs collect records. So I wanted to say after this Wolves game, there was one you sent me, courtesy of our good friend Andrew Beasley. Of the 51 clubs to have played in the Premier League, Mo Salah has now scored more than the all-time record scorer for 33 of them, including Newcastle's Alan Shearer, Chelsea's Frank Lampard, Arsenal's Thierry Henry, and as of today, Leeds' Peter Lorimer. First of all, Peter Lorimer's Leeds' all-time record scorer. Like, didn't he play in midfield? That's mad. Second of all, Mo Salah. Again. Like, you could quite easily run out of superlatives. And yes, it was just a penalty, whatever. Like,
When in a different place.
Like, if you look at his last 4 or 5 penalties, they've all been different. So the one against Ipswich, was it, I think, where he just curls it into the top corner. That was, or maybe it was at Spurs. Oh, anyway, the last one he did, curled it into the top corner gorgeously. This one just kind of clips it. So if you're a keeper and you're looking at all of Mo Salah's penalties, you're just thinking, well, he could do that. We could do that. Like,
and they do look, we know they do, like we've seen it on Pickford's water bottle or whatever it might be. And he knows they look.
But the moment between him starting his run up and getting to the ball is exactly the same. So you can never guess. Yeah. It's not like a cricketer.
I like the process, like, but you try and watch it, don't you? And it's like there's a whole thing goes on, isn't there? The way, like, it's not Mo who holds the ball while the fan is going on.
Exactly.
Because, like, if you hold the ball, that's always the point when someone starts walking up to you and saying shit to you. And he just gets off a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He sort of floats off to the edge of the box, has a little bit of a walk around. He's obviously probably going through some kind of, like, calming ritual in his head or whatever. Meanwhile, one of the other lads will stand with the ball. And I've noticed as well, they make sure no one does go up to Mo.
Yeah.
And they'll get in the way if they do and all that. And it's like, love all this.
He's got a minder.
but you remember, I think it was on, referenced this before, but reference it again because it's boss. Ben Foster, he's got his own podcast. And he said on that about Salah came up to him after a game and said, out of interest, where would you have gone? Type of thing. And Foster was like, how mad's that? Like how mad's that? He's still thinking about that. And he's just won a game and he's walking off the pitch and he's going to me, can I just ask, where'd you go? And then he's noting that, getting ready for another
logging
scenario.
All the information. Yeah, absolutely.
Elite shit, that.
Yeah, it really
Do you know
is.
as well that he's like literally only 2 goals behind Gordon Hodgson?
I know.
So he's, which will make him the 3rd all-time top goal scorer in the history of Liverpool Football Club.
And that might even happen between now and the next time we sit down here in this chair.
It's absolutely mad.
So, you said that you wanted us to have a very special dedicated area specifically for comments. And we've already done quite a bit of chunk of the show. So let's crack in and see what people have been saying.
Yeah, so, well, first off, thanks to Sean Farrell, who's dropped in $10 and says, love the show, boys, keep it up. Finally catching the show live from New York. Left a comment down below, just curious on your thoughts. He said, getting top spot, do you think we'll regret rotating against PSV on match day 6 and not getting at least a draw, which would have kept PSG above them in the table and out of our side of the bracket?
Oh, well, that's an interesting point because how many more players do you want to put into the team to do that? Because I thought that. And the reality is that the team that was out there could have been able to, were good enough to score one more goal. And if they had scored one more goal, then it would have been exactly that. But you can second guess yourself sometimes. So maybe is the answer to that question. If we end up drawing if we win 7 out of 8 games and end up drawing PSG in the round of 16, then you've been extremely unlucky. But it could still happen.
I just think the same as what I think about Plymouth in that, if you'd have taken any risk with any players, then you've got the other scenario, haven't you, of why did you play him in that game and he got injured? Again, I heard something on the radio before, and it was a scouser that rang in to say he had it on authority. Whether he's actually, this is true or not, I don't know. But he said that someone had been down, and I imagine this does happen, someone from Liverpool had been to Plymouth ahead of the game and sort of reported back, the pitch is not great, lads.
Yeah.
And what this fella understood, if you like, was that that came into Slot's thinking. And that he was literally like, okay, I'm not going to take a risk with all these on that pitch. And then what made me laugh was, and this is always the difference between like a national TV or radio presenter and someone who's actually a Red, is he goes, well, who got injured? Who got injured? No one got injured, did he? And I was like, yeah, Joe Gomez, lad. What are you on about? Did you watch the game, mate? Within 10 minutes, Joe Gomez is off and he's out now. So what are you on about? No one got injured. Joe Gomez got injured, mate. And that's my point. Like, you've got so many other teams that trip themselves up trying to win everything, including us. And look, I just think you can't knock Slot's management when, I tweeted something before from the Late Challenge, just a stat I spotted, which was that LFC have won 30 of the 40 matches across all comps this season, more than any other team in Europe's Big 5 leagues. So therefore, I would say he's managing it just fine.
He's doing all right.
And this nitpicking about could have done that, could have done. It's just bollocks. Like we're probably gonna win. Probably gonna win the stuff we want to win. Oh, and thanks to Luke Evans for his £1.49 and a picture of a bum. I think it's meant to be like a peach or something, but looks a bit bummy.
We might be doing some Valentine's Day chat in the Patreon show, so maybe that will.
Oh, and thanks to Lefty. It was just thrown in $19.99, says have a drink or some mad delicious crisps. Cheers. Who do you want to win between Madrid and City?
No one. No, honestly.
City.
I want City to win. Yeah, I agree. Because I'm thinking of the long game here. Yeah. Who is going to be a bigger barrier to watching the... who's going to be a bigger barrier to winning the Champions League? Madrid or City? It's Madrid. So get them outgone. But... more than either one of them, I want extra time. I want extra time. I want penalties. I want them to punch each other silly so they're both absolutely goosed. So then when we go to City on Sunday, we're in a much better position. But yeah, if you were asking me who I want to still be in the competition after that game, then it's Man City for sure. Now, you were talking before about Liverpool and how they've won more games than anyone else. This feeds into the stat that I sent you. So I was watching the game next to Steve Hunter, big chat.
Great fella.
Absolute top man. And he told a stat on the commentary, which I'm now stealing, that the Wolves game was the 17th game in a row at Anfield that Liverpool have scored at least 2 goals, which is a club record. The whole history, 1892 history of the club, never 17 games in a row at Anfield we scored 2+ goals. That's pretty damn good.
That is good.
Now, if you look at all 40 games Liverpool played this season, they've scored 2 or more goals on 33 out of those 40 games. And they've only scored no goals 3 times. Now look at the defence. How many times have they conceded 2 or more goals? That's 9 out of 40. How many times have they conceded no goals? 17 out of 40. So if you put those things together, more often than not, we're scoring 2 goals, and more often than not, we're conceding no goals. And what does a 2-0 get you? A win.
And 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League.
7 points clear.
Walton Coppates bizarrely says they are not tired. So I'm just going to have a little look. Virgil van Dijk has played 3,056 minutes all comps this season. Salah's played 3,033. Gravenberch 2,900. Alexis McAllister 2,500. Then Trent 2-3. Robbo 2-3. Szoboszlai 2-2. Diaz 2-2. Sounds like a fair bit of footy to me.
Yeah, it does.
And Gravenberch therefore looked tired to me. And he looked like that against Everton, and he looked like that when we played Newcastle away.
So we need to remember as well that Gravenberch has come off the back of 2 seasons of not playing much at all. Like, I think he had 1,100 Premier League minutes to his name last season, and he's already got more than double that. I think Szoboszlai in all comps last season started 29 games, and this season he's already on 25. Shout out to Sam Maguire for those stats. So they are doing more. And it's funny, I spoke to Slot about a month ago. I think it was just after the Spurs game that we lost. And we was talking about tiredness then. And he said that he wasn't worried about tiredness because the physical stats are actually higher than they were earlier on in the season. So, spoiler alert, when I speak to him tomorrow, maybe I'll ask him if that's still the case, because it certainly didn't look like it.
Well, also in the comments, we've got George the Helmet, who has clung on to the late challenge from its offset and puts really unfunny comments every single week. But he's actually come up with something that actually makes sense. I mean, you know, like it's almost like you've put that much shit into the box where you can put comments, George, that something comes out the other side that sometimes makes sense. So well in, maybe crack on with losing your virginity between now and the next show. But he has said...
And this is a lead up to a good thing, right?
Yeah, he said Arsenal are not in a title race, which I think is an interesting point. Presumably he's made it by accident because he's obviously weird. But I watched Arsenal against Leicester, and obviously, you know, we all know what happened, and we all know how they scored the goal, and we all know, you know, they brought a fella off the bench who used to play in midfield for Newcastle and then randomly scored 2 goals and then stood in front of all the microphones and said never played up front since it was 8.
Yeah.
And that just added to what I thought about the whole game, which is this doesn't look very sustainable, lads. You know what I mean? Like that, you know, Sterling was awful.
He was really bad.
He absolutely stunk the gaff out. He really reminded me of when we got Joe Cole. You know, like, like a sort of a lad who used to be good and, like, you know, peaked very early, and you've got him at the wrong stage of his career. And I was genuinely looking at him thinking, yeah, I think I can see why City and Chelsea were fairly happy to let you go.
The weird thing about Sterling is that there was a period of time when he was decent for Chelsea, but then it just kind of stopped getting picked, and you wonder, why have they stopped picking him? And then when he came in, he was like, oh, that's gone now. I'm kind of on the fence with Arsenal because I understand why people are saying, obviously, that isn't sustainable and that they've got no strikers, they've got no forwards, etc. They haven't really needed forwards to score goals. They've got Gabriel, he will score goals for you. And at the moment it's 7 points, and 7 points is still a decent amount. But I do think that they are probably still going to be in it and in and around it. They're not going to necessarily win like 11 out of 13 or whatever they need.
That's the thing. That's the thing that I think. You know, it was you and Kopi who did that show weeks back now, where you said about they still haven't strung together more than 3 wins in the Premier League, and they still haven't, have they?
Well, that was the third.
They're on one. Yeah.
So yeah, if they beat West Ham, then they'll go. So that'll be
that'll be their longest run all season. And it's like, we've already said it looked graft for us against Wolves, but that looked graft for them as well. And it's not like, again, I wonder, is this where some of this angst is coming from? In that, obviously, we've been pipped for titles by, the smallest of margins and everything. But that was like against the Man City machine, the Man City in the pomp, Man City at the best. And I just look at Arsenal and don't see that. They don't give me that angst of, they could definitely go on this mad run. Look, it's not done, and it's never done, and there's 13 games and all that. So, I'd actually love them. I kept repeating this to everyone I spoke to yesterday, I think. I kept saying, I'd love though, for it to all work out so that there's a proper let-off in the ground. You know what I mean? Like, say, I could come to that Arsenal game as an example that, say we beat them at Anfield and it means it's no more mathematically possible for them to catch us, we've won it. And I just imagine that let-off, imagine that pint, imagine what it'd be like in the ground, imagine how many people you'd hug, imagine what town would look like, imagine us trying to do a podcast.
The absolute drunkest podcast in the history of the world. Yeah, no, I'm here for all of that, absolutely all of it. I think where I'm wary is where people say that Arsenal have got they've got no chance. They're not our business or anything.
That's not right.
They can still be there to put pressure on us. One thing I would say though, and in the benefits cabinet, on 11 occasions, there's been a team that's had 6 points or more lead after 25 games. Of the previous 10, only one of them didn't go on to win the league, and that was Newcastle in 96.
Yeah.
All the other times when a team has had as big a lead as we have now, they've ended as champions. So if you need some extra little comfort to keep you going, allow that to be it. I still think Arsenal would much rather be where we are right now.
Of course they would, yeah. There's loads of people banging on, and I think it's worthy of mention, because, I just always think, if there's any way that we can ever influence people, then let's have a go, because why not? We've got a podcast, see what happens. So there's quite a few people, including Iron Hayden 666, who said, can't believe how many people walked away from sort of what's going on the pitch on 37 minutes and then did the same thing before full time. Now, I'm with Iron Hayden 666 on this.
Yeah.
We are in a title run. We are in a title challenge. We all want to see what I just described before, this huge let-off at Anfield when we finally do it in front of the fans, etc. So every single one of us that goes to the ground and is in the ground and can therefore play a part should do.
Yeah.
And it should be your absolute priority to watch every minute that they are on the pitch and urge them on. Like, there was a lad I spoke to today. It was like he was a student for John Moores, and he just wanted to do like an interview for their news channel for the journalists, if you like, the journalism students. And he was saying, he said it was like the second half hadn't started because loads of people weren't there. And look, some people get annoyed when you bring this up, so I always bring it up for that reason. And they'll say things like, it's dead hard to go for a piss in such a stand, or it's dead hard to get something to eat in such a stand, and that's why, or whatever. And there's obviously the corporate aspect as well, and the 11,000 corporate tickets we have inside Anfield. But I just think, come on, if you're going, look where we are, look at the opportunity we've got, and just be the best you. I don't think it's arriving yet, but I do think maybe soon as well that we should start to sow into the mindset. Is it time to maybe ramp up the greeting the coaches?
I was just thinking that,
because I can remember another thing we did with the rap, and it was just sort of like, I remember going in and, we used to have a meeting in the morning, and it'd be like, what can we do? What content can we make? What new thing can we do? Or whatever. I remember going in, and it was sort of like a similar situation. And it was like, let's try and get everyone going as much as we can. Let's ramp it up. And I remember speaking to Tony at the club and saying, do you think Robbo would do a sit down with us and we talk about how influential the atmosphere is?
Yeah.
But obviously he offers the view of a first team player. And let me tell you, he said it makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And we knew he would, but we wanted them to go on record and say it. And he was like, of course I hear you. Of course you feel it. It makes you run harder. It makes you forget that you're tired. It makes you run through all of that. And this is exactly what we need right now.
It worked on Sunday. So where I was sitting, you can sense the angst, you can sense the anxiety, and then the Wolves fans made that fatal mistake of singing about where's your famous atmosphere. So what did Anfield do? They said, well, here it is, have some of this. And they started cheering Liverpool, started singing songs, and you could just sense the crowd were like, no, it's our chance to get involved here. We're going to pick you lot up, and we're going to drag you over the line of this football match. And it worked. And I think people get arsy about, well, it's too early to do this, it doesn't matter for doing that, etc., etc. What's the worst that can happen from doing this from now? You're just going to help people get involved. You're going to help that atmosphere. And going back to the leaving the ground early, I don't think we're advocating for people pissing themselves in the stand. I'll give you a pass on that one. But outside of that, I think about this, and particularly at the end of the game, because something always winds me up. I always remember being that kid who was 11, 12, watching Liverpool games from hundreds of miles away, just thinking, wow, one day I'm definitely going to get to go there. I'm definitely going to get to go there. And however many times I've been there since, whether I'm a fan who's paid or whether I'm someone who's working, I never lose that. I never lose that feeling of, yes, mate, you've made it. Go back and tell 11-year-old you've made it. You're here. You get to see it. I'm going to soak up every last second of it that I can. And yes, you'll hear people say, oh, yeah, but getting out of it is a nightmare. I've got to get here. I've got to get there. Tell you what, is being 10 minutes further down the queue in the car going to help you when you miss out on the memory of a last-minute winner that you'd otherwise be telling your grandkids about for years and years and years and years and years? Is that better? Does it help you? I don't think it does. So when you get to the crunch, when you get to these really important times of the season, those things become more important. You've got to be there. You've got to do your bit.
Newcastle's the next one, isn't it? Next home game. That'll be a tough game. They're a good side, blah, blah, blah. Let's make it a big one. Yeah. Let's get in, maybe go a little bit earlier, maybe sort out your piss game so that you're back, maybe take some scan instead. I don't know, whatever it is. Just slightly step it up and go, hang on, I won't do what I normally do because this is a title race, this is a title challenge, and they need every single one of us in that ground to push them on and get them over the line. Darren Lewis, presumably not that one, because he's called opinionated mute. So he's not the fella from the Mirror. He says, just want to send my apologies to Mo if I gave him a fright at the match. I saw him walking towards the Shankly gates with his headphones on before the match, and I said, all right, Mo, but maybe I got a bit too in his face than I would have normally. He took me by surprise.
No, I know who you mean, and you're right, don't worry. I was just listening to my music far too loud, as I always do at that point. But yeah, no. Oh yeah, you're all right.
Also, Paul McHugh's been on, Baldy Paul,
yes.
And he says, this was replying to a tweet I'd said about, how good Liverpool are and maybe we should give them more credit and stop being angsty about everything. He said it was very nervy in the ground yesterday, but they only had 3 more shots after Cunha's goal, and the XG for those 3 shots were 0.07, 0.02 and 0.07. And he says, yes, it required a block by Kwanzaa to deny a great chance, but that's good defending.
Yeah.
And maybe it was more comfortable than it seemed.
Well, that's what you need. Sometimes you need to take a step back, and yeah, we all understand the emotion of the moment, but sometimes you have to be trusting that these boys are going to do what needs to be done. Like you mentioned before about the way the kind of like not stayed possession, but they were prioritizing keeping the ball over creating more chances and trying to calm the whole situation down. And like you can think about it and say, well, we're playing at home against Wolves, we shouldn't be needing to do that against them. So you're doing whatever the situation demands. Like we're in this point of the season, you can't say, oh, well, we should be beating these, so why is it so hard? Because it's a tough game. It's the Premier League. Like, Slot himself said it, like, there's no way that someone in Holland, a team in Holland who is 17th, are going to have a player as good as Cunha. Like, that's the Premier League. They've all got good players. So you mentioned the Newcastle game at home and wanted to get the atmosphere out for that one. The one I'm thinking of is Southampton at home on the 8th of March, because that's the kind of game where fans could go into the game expecting a 4-0, expecting an easy game. And if it doesn't turn out to be easy, that's when you get the angst and the anxiety. No, we want none of that. We want them to get our support if it's not easy. If they're winning 2-0, 3-0, happy days. If it's 1-0, no, we need to get involved. If it's 1-1, no, we need to get involved. We need to be able to be the best version of ourselves, just like we're asking them to be.
And don't make our own players more nervy than they already are. That's what Robbo was trying to say to us all there. They are feeling it. They know the opportunity they've got, and they know that there's going to be times in games where it's a bit. We've all just got to keep our cool and make it as positive as we can be. Johnny Clark's thrown a $5 in. Thank you, mate. He says, I thought Bradley was brilliant when he came on, looked assured, and he made a brilliant challenge late on.
And showed his brain as well when he shepherded that one out for the goal kick, which Like, we didn't get a goal in the second half, but that was like a goal. There was 4 moments towards the end. There was the Kwanzaa block. There was that. There was Virgil heading that free kick out for a corner. And then there was the Endo one where he won the free kick. They were all like goals because that meant that we were able to keep those 3 points. Now, we've already spoken for an hour and we've done one of the 4 games that we were going to talk about. So the Patreon people are going to get the benefit of all of that. So yes, if you aren't one of those people, then you should become one of those people. Come join us. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's maybe just going to cost you a little bit of a fingernail. So come over. We will be doing the next part of the show very, very soon. But before we wrap up the free bit, I wanted to give another plug for my upcoming US tour. Oh. That's an hour. Yes, I needed an alarm. So sue me. Anyway, US tour.
Wee Willy Winky there.
No, I'll be straight asleep if you say that. No, US tour. We're going to Boston on Wednesday, March the 19th. I'll be in New York on Friday, March the 21st, and in Philly on March the 23rd, hoping there will still be a Super Bowl party going I can go and get involved in. So if you are a member of the official supporters club of any of those cities, or you live close to those cities, go and contact them, get involved, say, listen, I want to come and see Mo. Let me get a ticket. There you go.
Okay. And Corey has just thrown in $9.99 and he says, why do people leave before full time? I think we just kind of covered that. So don't ever, I mean, people sometimes are watching live at different points, if you like, so maybe he's not reached that bit. But good question, mate. It's normally around things like Beat the Traffic is the absolute classic. It's, I mean, look, some people legitimately need to go. I would say that. But the number that left, I'm not having it. No. And some of them are bounding out. So when I'm saying some people might need to, maybe they're a bit slow on the feet or a bit doddery or don't want to be among the big throng that leaves on the actual final whistle. I get that. But these are people who are bounding out to get back and go and get stuck into the Sunday roast, which will still be fine.
It'll still be there.
if you're 20 minutes later or whatever.
And the thing is, like, if you really are trying to beat the rush or beat the queue, like, you need to leave on 60, not on like 92 or 82 or whatever. So you're still going to be just further down the same queue. So it's just not worth it. But yeah, you're right.
Get behind the Reds. Get behind the Reds.
There are some people who will need to do it, but for the rest of us, let's go out there and show these boys what we really think of them. Thank you very much for joining us. When we go back into the Patreon show, we're going to be talking about Everton. We're going to be talking about Aston Villa. We're going to be talking about Man City. And we might even be talking about empty Grundies in Jacaranda toilets. So stay tuned for all of that. See you then.